It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and I have been wanting to do some gaming content on Wednesdays, but we're going to start with a Wellness Wednesday. This first Wellness Wednesday of 2024. Happy New Year. I'd actually recorded a Manly Monday, and then I didn't put it up because that would mean uploading during the holiday, and I'm trying not to do that. One of my goals for 2024 is to try to maintain baseline better, not get so overextended, because I found that as difficult as it is, even though I feel like I'm doing less, I'm more productive if I don't push myself so hard. And that is a hard thing to train yourself to do, I know. But one of the things that it prevents is emotional reactance. And I want to talk about emotional reactance in 2024 because it's one of those things. It's something I've been talking about on the Discord and other places. And people are like, what's reactance? And it's like, this is not as well known a term as I thought it was. So time to do baseline. So what is psychological? Let me do help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. Or the GoFundMe, which I still have to revamp. I really have to make this a priority. I'm checking stuff off the list gradually based on necessity, and that one's just not in the top 5 yet. But yeah, we've had a lot of cool people join the Discord of late. We've had a lot of really good discussions, and one of the things that we have to do to facilitate those really great discussions that are deep and meaningful and cool and passionate and cool, we have to manage reactance. And to me, I think understanding reactance, really, it's something that we need more of in this day and age. Because let me get to the definition. Psychological reactance, this is from a citation in 2015, is a phenomenon that involves a hostile motivational reaction to offers, persons, rules, or regulations that are perceived to threaten behavioral freedoms and agency. What blah 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 blah. Yeah, this is the fun thing about academic speak. Basically, I refer to it as the "you're not my parent" response. And that idea of threatening freedoms and agency. The issue with this is that we tend not to see the freedoms we do have unless we actively do exercises to recognize, no, there are certain areas that I can do a lot more than the average person. There are other places I can't. No one has absolute freedom. No one. And yet we put such a high value on the concept of freedom in our society, but we don't actually spend a lot of time talking about what maximized freedoms actually look like in real terms. Because when we get to the concept of agency, that ability to act your will, like enact your will on the world, the more agency you have, the more you can't just do whatever comes to your mind, because then you're trampling other people who have less agency than you. And if you don't care, you don't care. But we all know what it's like to be that person who's trampled. And understanding that our brain does this, that the idea that something is being taken from us, especially the concept of freedom being taken from us. Now there's mixed understanding in how big a deal this is in different cultures around the world. The idea of the sense of self varies from cultural to culture, but in the West, we do put a pretty high bar on a pretty high value on freedom, and our perception of our own agency is a very, very sticky thing that is both situational. And the problem with the way education is done in the world right now is that people get this concept and they have a definition, and education spends a lot of time stuffing facts into our heads, but doesn't spend a lot of time teaching us how to responsibly and accurately apply those facts and extrapolate facts. And so what that means is that a lot of people don't see the freedom and the agency they do have because they're too busy focused on the things they don't have. And that's when I find, Dungeons and Dragons, like tabletop role-playing games, are so useful because unlike, and I've been thinking about this a lot. This is one of the game videos I want to do, because you can't make a tabletop role-playing game into a video game. And I realized why, simply because video games are a multiple choice test, whereas tabletop RPGs are more short essay. When you encounter a situation in a video game RPG, you get a series of dialogue responses. You have a set of pre-canned actions you can and cannot do. And so it's just pick from the list. Whereas when you're doing tabletop role-playing, your choices are essentially infinite. They're limited only by your imagination. And there's this thing where if the suggestion is presented in a video game, there's this part in Baldur's Gate 3 where you lick a spider carcass, or you can lick a spider carcass, and it's like, would I have thought about licking a dead spider before the game made it an option? No. But did I save scum it and try it just to see what would happen? Yes. Because otherwise I feel like I'm missing out on something. That is a tiny bit of, you're taking something from me. It changes my behavior. And that isn't a thing unless you get a specific mod call or a GM call in a game or on a Discord. And one of the things we've been finding on the Discord is that there is this huge reactance whenever we just say, hey, cool it. And I've really been thinking about it a lot, because all of a sudden people forget who I am and how many chances I give people, how I prefer to be able to say, hey, can you cool it, and have the person do it. We give people so many damn chances on the servers. I do it on social media. I do it in my real life. And it is amazing how many people don't recognize that they are being given more freedom and more agency to control the outcome by me going, hey, not cool, knock it off, than me just hitting the block button or the mute button, right? Because I'm maintaining their ability to talk to me. Instead, they blow up because I've told them no. And they behave irrationally. And so, far too often it ends up being the very outcome I was trying to avoid by saying, hey, not cool, please don't do that, instead of just cutting off contact. Because they flip out so bad that either they rage quit or I have to cut off contact because I only have so much time. I only have so much energy. If I'm focusing on the people that aren't behaving, it's essentially punishing the people that are behaving because the brats are getting all the attention. But that's how reactance works, right? If we don't stop and rationally take a second look at something that's causing an extreme emotional response, we blow it. And, I say we because I'm including myself in that. One of the reasons I do have the patience for people in gaming and, online and stuff like that I do, and it's frequently mischaracterized, is because, I was that person who had very strong reactions to feeling stomped on. And it took me a decade to kind of sort through it and figure out where that was coming from. And for me, it was, it was just trauma, right? It was my brain going, not again, have to fight. Because, it was falsely drilled into me that you're letting them get to you. They're letting you you're letting them push you around. Stand up to them. All that advice was wrong. What really worked better in a lot of cases was just, yep, no, we're not doing this. Either cut it out or see ya. Not engaging, not emotionally investing in the fight. And that's easier said than done because we all have things that are weak points. We all have things that get to us. And that's when, we have to recognize what it is. The threat to that freedom, that threat to agency. And, the theory goes that it's almost like a reverse psychology thing, that if somebody asks you not to do something, you do it to spite them because that's you reclaiming your freedom, not recognizing that somebody just asking you not to do it again, as opposed to, instantly taking away your access to them, is actually offering you a freedom, not taking one away. Because when you think about the alternative, it's, block. Well, you don't have the freedom to talk to that person anymore, do you? And some people go, I'm going to take up another account and I've got this one guy who quit the Discord. Okay. And over the holidays, I've gotten a dozen emails from this guy and tweets trying to relitigate a situation he walked away from. And, when he walked away, I set some boundaries because he treated other people quite badly. And I would not accept that. And I'm not going to pretend like it didn't happen. But remember, he walked away. And he's still trying to blame me. And it's getting to the point that I may have to block him because it's not stopping. And this is the problem with reactance. This is a problem with having this extreme "you're not my parent" response, because I do think, at least based on looking at my own responses, it is rooted in the fact that we weren't protected, or were not sufficiently protected in certain areas. We feel like everything is a fight to the death, and that even the slightest little thing is going to mean we're going to be, we're going to have things that are important taken from us, or we're going to be ostracized. And, as somebody who has been very frequently and repeatedly ostracized from various nerd communities just for refusing to say things I don't mean, it's not easy. It's really been weighing on me a lot lately. And it has been a real challenge to stay grounded when there's a lot of reactance surrounding not just like serious world news, but also, stuff going on in gaming, with the major sea change right now with all the layoffs. That's really hard to watch people who I've respected for years get laid off and then watch them unravel online. It's just tragic because I wanted to believe that these people I looked up to had support systems and they had people that they could talk to, but the behavior online speaks to me of a profound loneliness in people who don't see the agency that they do have to enact change. And freedoms are responsibilities. Agency definitely is a responsibility. And the problem with emotional reactance is that it tends to confuse freedom for agency. Like, yes, you're free to do a lot of things. That doesn't mean there won't be consequences. And the more agency you have in a particular group means that you're not going to suffer the same consequences as someone else. So be very careful how you wield that agency. But the minute you say that to someone, it's, you're denying me my freedom. No, I'm not. I'm just telling you, if you continue the way you're going, people are going to think you're an asshole. Take it from a pro. The reason I say, look, I'm an asshole is not to let myself off the hook. It's just being honest. Like, I've been thinking a lot about, I wish I didn't have to be such a hard ass. I wish I didn't, but not in the cards for me. And so then it's a question of not letting the frustration get the better of me. And I found that there's this misunderstanding. The way we handle conflict is all wrong in this space. We have one person get reactant, another person get reactant, and then there's some sort of discussion that happens behind the scenes. I don't know. Maybe there is none. Maybe they just go, whatever, fine. And it never gets resolved. And then the supporters of this one personality or another personality continue to fight because they didn't get whatever resolution the other side did. And so they still feel attacked. They feel like something was taken from them. And, the idea that freedom means you're doing something right and restraining yourself means you are somehow being fake or weak. That's something we really need to retrain. Dave Chappelle put out another special on Netflix, and man, the trans stuff is just getting increasingly less funny. And you see him going, I'm going to stop talking about this because I don't need them to be funny. It's like, dude, you're spending 12 minutes on a special that's supposed to be about your life. And I've found Dave Chappelle's stuff funny for like decades. He's losing it. And it's not just it's all this stuff, because you can't be funny, really funny, unless you've got perspective. And reactance is only funny for so long. And I find my stuff is funniest when I don't have my teeth in it, when I've got enough distance from it to go, yeah, and I just don't know, based on how explosive and how tense that entire deal was with him and, the LGBTQ plus community. You got to give that some space, man. Too soon. Like, he doesn't have perspective. He's just being reactive. And so what can we do? Well, one thing is remembering that this stuff forms in early childhood. We get our sense of what's normal and what's right from how our parents behaved. And trust me, that process of, recognizing your parents maybe didn't have your best interests at heart, either overall or in some areas, is very hard. It's very painful. It's something you have to do to become a fully autonomous adult. But it is painful. It is a loss. And learning how to Kobayashi Maru, like learning how to accept the smaller losses to win the greater battle, that's a skill. And it's the shittiest skill to learn, because that means you have to lose again and again and again. And we all get sick of losing. And that's one of the things that I find really does help reactance, is if you've got a group of people that you can go to and be supported, not unconditionally. People can support that you have the best of intentions, and you're trying, they can support what you're attempting to accomplish without supporting your methods at this particular time. And there are better or worse ways to bring that up to someone. Okay, it's done, we've said our piece, let's move on, is less likely to get reactance than, I don't agree with what you did. I think that people, because they're in an ongoing state of reactance, often treat people the way they were treated, as opposed to treating people the way they'd like to be treated. And this is within our control. We cannot control our emotions. We can control what we do with them. And one of the things I've noticed is a lot of people saying they're calm because this is considered a desirable state. The best thing to do is take that out of your vocabulary. There's nothing wrong with not being calm. You notice I said grounded instead of calm. The idea that some of the stuff that's going on in the world, it's impossible to remain calm regarding, Ukraine or Gaza or something. It is impossible to remain calm. Don't expect that. Because if you expect yourself to be calm, if you think calm is the right response there, then you're going to end up feeling like you're failing. You're going to become more reactive. You're going to start flailing, trying to regain a sense of equilibrium. Instead, it's much more productive to go, this whole thing is disturbing. And it's easy to just want it to stop and flail and kick and scream and abuse and falsely accuse, to just get it to stop, instead of accepting that, most of us can't do shit about what's going on in a lot of places in the world, except make a lot of noise. And this is where, that lack of agency staring us in the face, we can't do anything about it. that's where the reactance comes from. And that's why you got to pivot it. It's like, this is what you learn in trauma therapy. Control what you can control. Because trauma and reactance is a bad combination. That's when people just blow and completely lose control. And this is why I cannot play this game. It took a lot for me to get my head around the reality that once you are past a certain threshold, you are not in control. You're gonna do hurtful, shitty things. And you have your reasons, but you're gonna do hurtful, shitty things. Do you want that? No. Well, then control what you can control. Stop that limit from getting breached. And so when I look at the horrible things going around the world right now, it's like, okay, what can I do? Well, if I want to advocate for peace, I have to show an ability to not be reactive when someone is baiting me, right? I have to set an example of, look, this is possible. It is possible for someone to do horrible things to you. And you can both stand up for yourself and make it so that they know this isn't happening again without completely losing your shit and doing terrible things. And I'm not intending to make that sound easy. It isn't, but it is worthwhile. And that comes down to the stories you tell yourself. Because think about it. If you think being calm is the ideal you're shooting for, and whenever you're not calm, it's a bad thing, well, now you're having anxiety about not being calm, right? Now you're beating yourself for not being calm. I have to be calm. I have to be calm. You're not going to be. So accepting that you're not calm and aiming for grounded or, appropriately restrained is the way to make your brain not feel like it's losing a freedom or it's losing control. So, because being not calm does not mean being not in control. And if you're equating that, well, you're going to be reactive. The next thing is to go, all right, what can I control here? And sometimes pushing back is the correct thing. This is getting into standing by what you did because it was fair, even if the other person doesn't like it or a group doesn't like it. Again, the idea that telling someone off is always bad. Yelling is always bad. If somebody's about to run into traffic, hey, there's a car there, is not an act of abuse. A brief cut it out is not prolonged screaming and yelling to try to cow someone into shutting up, right? These are not the same thing. So validating your own responses when they're fair, even when people think you're wrong for doing it, that is hard, but that is essential for maintaining your sense of control, agency, and freedom. And then it's those boundaries. It's the question of believing in the position you're taking enough to weather the tantrums of other people or feeling empowered enough to walk away. And the truth is that if you leave that idea of walking away open to you in your head, you feel much more in control of these situations. And that's, I have had to do so much of that, but it was the only thing I really could control. The comic book industry walked away, too toxic, way before Comicsgate happened. Oh, Comicsgate did not just happen. That was brewing for a very long time. Television, toxic as shit in this country, walked away from sci-fi and fantasy conventions, toxic as anything. And they're like, but you're losing your freedoms. No, I'm not. I'm making a choice. I decided that I wasn't enjoying going there. I didn't accept how I was being treated. And every time I walked back in the door there, I was giving people permission to abuse me. Same with the indie game scene. Every time I walked into one of those meets, I knew what was going to happen and I was giving somebody permission to abuse me. So I stopped giving them access to me. Oh, but what about promoting your stuff? There are other ways, and my whole priority here is to make a game. If people hate it, I don't care. I just want to try. I just want to say I did it. It's one of those bucket list things. And man, it's hard. But I do think it's worthwhile just because now I know it's hard, and it's definitely changed my expectations of devs, including AAA devs, which are pretty understanding to begin with, but even more so now. But, I'm not going to do it in the dickish way that, the Starfield guy did. Because it's like, yeah, it's hard. I know it's hard, which is why I can say there are some things that are understandable that you missed. But you can say you still missed it. And then there are other things where, no, there's a problem with your production structure when you end up with this result. And that's optimism. That's like, I think you're good enough to do better next time. And that's the other thing. I think if you want to reduce the reactance, give criticisms in a supportive way. It makes a big difference instead of just going, you suck, this was bad. It's like, you're good. And there's better to be had here. And these are the things you did that were great. So this is why this is so glaring. So, keep this in mind, because you're going to bring, it's the difference between Warhammer doing a whole bunch of different games. They're doing like action games. They're doing CRPGs. They're doing MMOs. They're doing a whole bunch of different, what is that? Something Blood and Teeth. That's just like a side scroller action game. They're bringing in different kinds of people to the Warhammer brand, as opposed 40K brand, as opposed to like Forgotten Realms, who was just so hung up on books and now PDF subscriptions and, a particular kind of movie and CRPGs, that you're only getting this narrow slice of people who can love your IP as an IP, not just a game system. And that's, if you think of yourself as that, as this sort of multifaceted thing that can engage in different ways, you're much more nimble in terms of, being open to the freedoms that you do have. That's why I love my trickster characters, my trickster gods, is because, yeah, they sacrifice public opinion for freedom. And if you want to do that, you go right ahead. Just be very aware of what you're doing. Other times, it's more worth curtailing certain things to be effective. The choice is yours. And that choice is freedom. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or the GoFundMe. For now, thanks for watching. Don't work on the reactance, and be well.